Okay, so we've got another deep dive today, and this one really caught my eye.
Hmm.
It's a team structure, and I think you're going to find this pretty fascinating.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Right off the bat, there are some real head scratchers.
Yeah.
So we've got an operations director, a head who's actually on the job market looking for another job,
Interesting.
a senior producer, and then two producers.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
These producers are described as being more experienced than their managers, but they don't have any direct reports themselves.
Wow. So already you've got like a bit of a power dynamic mismatch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this deep dive, we're going to unpack, based on all this information you've given us, what the potential friction points are, what the outcomes could be from this kind of a setup.
Right. Because like on paper, it sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It really does.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing hints in your material of, like, some pretty concerning issues.
Right.
Really experienced people feeling completely overlooked, basic financial processes that are just struggling to function.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, I think right away what jumps out at me is, this whole thing about experience versus authority.
Yeah.
You've got these seasoned producers who, like, the way this team is set up, they're most likely reporting to people who have less practical experience than they do,
Right.
less hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And that right there makes you kind of wonder, like, what's going on at a bigger level?
Mhm.
Is this maybe a sign of something else happening within the organization? Maybe it's like they grew too fast.
Mhm.
And the org chart just hasn't caught up with the actual talent that they have.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's not just like a static thing on a piece of paper, right?
Mhm.
This has real implications.
Right. Absolutely.
And your material does highlight how these producers might feel underutilized.
Yeah.
You can almost imagine the dynamic.
Yeah.
It's like someone who's a master craftsman.
Being told how to saw wood by someone who's still learning.
Right, exactly.
So beyond that obvious frustration, what are some of the less immediate consequences?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is, like, innovation, problem solving.
Mm.
If your most experienced people, they don't feel like they can actually contribute their insights or
Right.
make decisions,
Yeah.
you're kind of missing out.
Mm.
You're leaving all that potential on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And the text specifically mentions that there's no clear path to grow
Right.
for these people.
Right.
And when you think about it, that lack of upward mobility, it can really stifle initiative.
Mm.
Like, why go the extra mile if it's not going to be recognized or laid to anything?
Right. You hit a ceiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that can slowly but surely erode the team's productivity.
And it seems like, in this case, that erosion is being accelerated by the person at the top of this producer group,
Yeah.
the head who's looking to leave.
And the description here is, well, it's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
Dismissive, unengaged, and ineffective creates a bottleneck.
Ooh.
That's a tough assessment.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not.
And when you've got someone like that in a position of leadership,
Right.
it can really just clog up the work.
Right. Everything grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's important to think about here is, how is this impacting their ability to actually support their team? Especially those producers with all that experience.
Yeah.
If the head's not advocating for them, if they're not addressing issues,
Yeah.
it's like all that expertise that the producers have just gets wasted. And it says here, like, nothing gets resolved.
Right.
So there's this real sense of stagnation.
Yeah, nothing's moving.
Yeah.
Is there any indication in the material as to why this head might be so disengaged?
Well, there is mention of unfulfilled promises.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's maybe some breakdown of trust there, potentially. And that lack of resolution.
Right.
I mean, it seems to have some very real effects on the team.
Yeah, you can see that with producer A.
Okay.
They're reportedly working at only 80% capacity,
Wow.
feeling resentful,
Yeah.
and they're looking for a new job,
Yeah.
one where their experience will actually be valued.
Yeah. Well, no surprise there.
It's a direct consequence of this whole mess.
It really is.
And then you've got the operations director,
Right.
who's described as clueless,
Cool.
which is harsh, but it seems like they're operating under the assumption that everything's fine,
Yeah.
based on what the head is telling them.
Right. So the head is giving them these empty assurances.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you've got this real breakdown in the flow of accurate information upwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just the producers who are being affected.
Right.
The head's disengagement is actually misleading the people above them.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, How much visibility does the organization actually have into what's actually happening on this team
Yeah, that's a good question.
in terms of performance and morale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stuck in the middle is the senior producer,
Right.
described as either frustrated or irrelevant, and unable to bridge the gap.
Wow.
So it sounds like maybe they see the issues,
Yeah.
but they don't have the authority or maybe the support to actually do anything about them.
Maybe you're just as stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And the bottom line here seems to be that the team risks crumbling if producer A or B walks.
Yeah.
That's a pretty stark warning.
It is. It's a really fragile situation. And losing people like producer A who have all this experience
Right.
would not only create a skills gap,
Right?
but it could also really demoralize the rest of the team.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's like watching a ship sink
Yeah.
and, thinking about the senior producer. It makes you wonder, is there ineffectiveness because they don't have the power?
Right.
Or are they also just feeling the effects of the head's disengagement?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is there a kind of like paralysis across the whole management level of the team?
Yeah, and I want to talk about something that I think really shows just how dysfunctional this all is.
Okay.
The financial mismanagement. The
Right.
way the head handles expenses or doesn't handle them is shocking.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Producer B has been waiting 2 months for a 250-pound reimbursement,
Wow.
despite being told it was coming.
Yeah.
And then producer A still doesn't have a converter that they need, which has been 4 months.
Wow.
4 months for something that's probably not a huge expense.
Right.
This isn't like a major purchase.
No.
It just shows how broken the system is.
Yeah, and these kind of delays, they seem small on the surface, but they can be really damaging to morale,
Right.
to trust within the team.
Yeah.
I mean, think about producer B, right?
Yeah.
They've got their own money tied up for months
Right.
after being told they'd be reimbursed.
Yeah.
It's like a slap in the face.
Yeah, it's like they don't value you.
Exactly. And then producer A can't even get the basic tools they need to do their job.
Right.
It directly impacts their productivity.
Yeah, it's paralyzing.
It really is.
And it makes you wonder, are there bigger cash flow problems within the company? Or is it just bad management?
Yeah. Is it just incompetence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about all check
Oh, yeah.
with the head,
Yeah.
it's like this empty promise.
It's just a hollow refrain.
Right. They say it all the time, but nothing happens.
Yeah.
There's zero accountability.
Right.
And then, on top of all that, the company expense processes are not clear.
Oh, great.
It's just a black box.
Yeah.
No one knows what the budgets are, how things get approved.
Right.
So these producers are stuck.
Yeah.
They have no idea why these delays are happening,
Yeah.
or to fix them.
Yeah, they're just at the mercy of the system.
Exactly.
And the fact that producer B is out of pocket for months, producer A can't get a 20-pound fix? It's crazy.
It's just ridiculous.
It is.
And there's this detail about past misuse of internal systems
Oh, right.
that kind of makes you wonder, is this just a one-off
Right.
because of the head?
Yeah.
Or are there, like, deeper problems
Yeah. Bigger issues at play.
in the company's financial controls?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if those issues aren't addressed, even if you get a new head,
Right.
the problems are just going to keep happening.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, do they have any internal audits?
Right. Are there any checks and balances in place?
Yeah, clearly not working.
Yeah.
And the operations director, it seems like they have no idea what's going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're completely in the dark.
Wow.
The text describes it as a blind spot. They're disconnected from the producers.
Yeah.
Unaware of all these problems.
Right.
Because the head is filtering everything.
Wow. So the head is actively preventing the information from getting up?
Exactly. It's like a deliberate obstruction. Yeah. That's a major red flag.
It is.
If leadership doesn't know what's going on, how can they fix it?
Right.
And the fact that these delays with producer A and producer B, they never even reach the operations director.
It's a failure at every level.
It's a total breakdown of communication, of reporting structures.
Yeah.
And it makes you question, how can the operations director possibly know what's going on
Right.
if they're being kept in the dark like this?
And it really highlights how powerless these experienced producers are.
Yeah.
Producer B with 18 years of experience.
So,
Producer A with 15 years.
yeah.
They can't even get basic financial support.
It's unbelievable.
Their seniority means nothing.
Right.
They have zero influence.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel like they're just grunts below a useless head.
Yeah.
They're just cogs in a broken machine.
Right.
And I can only imagine the burnout.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not feel burnt out
Right,
in that
so-
situation?
Producer B waiting months for a reimbursement that they shouldn't have had to pay in the first place.
Yeah.
That feels like a real breaking point.
It's completely demoralizing.
Yeah.
It really undermines their professional standing.
Excellent.
When you've got people with this much experience struggling with basic stuff
Yeah.
and being ignored by management,
Yeah.
what kind of message does that send?
It says we don't value you.
Right, you're not important.
Yeah.
And it makes you question, how efficient can this company even be?
Right.
If these producers are spending all their time chasing expenses
Yeah.
instead of doing their actual jobs.
It's a huge waste of time and resources.
It's a mess.
And what about the senior producer in all of this?
Right, you'd think they could do something.
You'd think they would be the advocate,
Yeah.
but it seems like they're also ineffective
Hmm.
when it comes to these expenses.
So is that because they don't have the authority,
Right.
or are they also just part of the problem?
Yeah. Are they stuck in the same system?
Yeah, caught in the same bottleneck as everyone else.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but clearly they're not able to get things done,
Right.
which means the producers don't have anyone on their side.
And all of this leads to some pretty big consequences.
Yeah.
Cash flow,
Yeah.
morale.
Right.
I mean, these constant delays, the unclear processes,
Yeah,
it could mean there are some serious cash flow problems within the company.
right. It makes you wonder.
Even if that's not the case,
Yeah,
the perception of mismanagement is just as damaging.
absolutely.
And the impact on the producers, like producer B being out of pocket, producer A working with outdated equipment,
Right.
I mean, that's real.
It is. It's not just some abstract concept.
Yeah.
It's affecting their lives.
Yeah,
And it's no surprise that they're both thinking of leaving. It's a breach of trust.
it is.
When employees feel like they can't even trust the company to handle basic things like this,
Right.
it creates resentment. It undermines their commitment.
And you've also got the head's departure looming over all of this. They're about to leave, and all these unresolved expenses and delays are still hanging in the air.
Yeah,
And if the operations director doesn't have a good relationship with the producers,
right.
which it doesn't sound like they do,
Yeah.
there's a huge risk that the whole financial process just stops completely
Yeah. Everything grinds to a halt.
when the head walks out the door.
Yeah, it's like pulling the rug out from under everyone.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways here.
Okay.
What might seem like just a few logistical problems
Right, some minor annoyances.
actually points to a much deeper dysfunction.
Yeah, it's systemic.
There's a real human cost to this.
Right.
And the potential for damage to the organization is huge
Absolutely.
if these issues aren't addressed.
And it's not just about fixing the surface level problems.
Right. You got to get to the root of it.
Yeah, you need to understand what's causing them
Exactly.
and find some real solutions.
Otherwise, it's just going to keep happening.
Exactly. You're just kicking the can down the road.
Right. And for everyone listening, this really highlights how something that might seem small
Right.
can actually be a sign of something much bigger.
Yeah, it's like a crack in the foundation.
Exactly.
You might not see it at first,
Right.
but it can bring the whole house down.
And it makes you think,
Hmm.
how often do we see these seemingly minor issues in our own teams
Right.
or organizations?
Yeah, the things you just brush off. Like,
Yeah.
that's no big deal.
And they're actually symptoms of much deeper problems.
Right, of some fundamental weakness.
What can we do to not just fix the little things,
Yeah.
but to actually dig deeper
Right, to find the root cause.
and come up with real solutions
Yeah, before it's too late.
before the whole thing falls apart?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Food for thought.